You ever watch a World Series and wonder, how did this team get here? Well, there's been plenty of examples in my lifetime. I mean, the Marlins magically won 2 World Series out of nowhere. Well, in 2007, the Colorado Rockies made an unexpected playoff push that led to a pennant win, even though they got swept in the World Series that year. But in 2008, there was one of the most unexpected World Series runs ever that I don't really think we're going to see anything like it again for a while. And heck, we really haven't seen anything like that for a while, as even though we might get some unexpected World Series teams almost every year, there's always a sign that they could just pop up at any second. But with this team, it was kind of literally out of nowhere. In 2008, the once named Tampa Bay Devil Rays decided to rebrand to the Tampa Bay Rays, give themselves a new look, and what happened next was a thing straight out of a movie. From 1998 to 2007, the Tampa Bay Rays could win no more than 70 games, and they had trouble developing the young talent that they actually did have. People forget that this team drafted Josh Hamilton, but after him and his family got into a car accident that led him to a drug addiction, things kind of were never the same again. By that I mean things stayed the same for the Rays, but in 2007, Josh Hamilton, as a member of the Reds, won Rookie of the Year, and then after being traded to the Texas Rangers, he would instantly become an all-star and a top 10 player in the league for about a 5-6 year span. So yeah, Tampa Bay messed this one up big time. And it was a lot of the same throughout the rest of time, as even when they did get their draft picks right, which at this point was rare, they could never fully develop them. But heading into 2008, they definitely did have a lot of young talent coming in. Evan Longoria, a draft pick from just a couple years ago, would finally make his major league debut at the age of 22. BJ Upton was 23 years old and was already playing at a pretty good level. And Carl Crawford was kind of starting to live up to his expectation of getting on base and being an excellent base stealer. But they always seem to have a problem in the pitching. Now, this team did have Scott Kazmir, who had been their ace for the past couple of years, and even at just the age of 24 was the best pitcher they've ever had. But they went from one of the worst starting rotations in the league to a rotation that looked like this. Even the bullpen, which always seemed to have his problem, really started to come through, and what you got was a team of misfits, low payroll, learning how to win, and win they did. Now keep in mind, this team, the Tampa Bay Rays, was in a division that had 2 powerhouse teams atop of it, the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees, who seemed to flip-flop division titles and who would win a wild card berth every single year for the past decade or so, whereas teams like the Orioles, Blue Jays, and Rays always seem to be fighting for mediocre to bottom feeders at this point in time. And of course, the Red Sox were coming off a World Series championship, so expectations were high for them, and, well, the Red Sox did make the playoffs. However, they didn't win the division. So it must have been the New York Yankees that won the division, right? Well, no, the Yankees actually missed the playoffs this year. One of the rare times since 1995 that they actually didn't go to the postseason. I mean, hey, the Orioles had a solid start to their season. Maybe they did something and, oh, okay, they won 68 games. And the Blue Jays were kind of stuck in mediocrity, meaning that, wait a minute, the Tampa Bay Rays won the 2008 AL East?
Fly ball, left field. Bottom fishers no more. The Rays are going to the playoffs.
That's right. Seemingly out of nowhere, a team that had won no more than 70 games in its franchise history, won 97 games, and took the AL East title from the defending World Series champion, Boston Red Sox. And this was a team that heading into the All-Star break was on a cold streak, as yes, they were 55-39, but a 7-game losing streak had everybody questioning whether they can keep up with the big boys in the division, and they did. Heading into the playoffs, they took on the Chicago White Sox, who weren't necessarily a surprise team themselves, but were in the postseason for the first time since their 2005 World Series run. And the Rays took 3 out of 4, meaning that they were setting up an ALCS matchup with a team that had basically punched them around and bullied them since their existence, that being the Boston Red Sox.
And I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but he wants to kick my butt.
Dad, what are you doing? Nothing, son.
What did I tell you about talking to strangers?
Now he's gonna kick my butt!
And even though the Rays won the AL East, no one was really giving them a chance. Of course, the Red Sox were favored in this series, but it became one of the most classical playoff series, I think, ever. Both teams fought game in and game out. No one seemed to have an advantage, and it would end up needing a seventh and deciding game to determine who would win the American League pennant and who would go to the World Series to face the NL champion Philadelphia Phillies. Would it be the Red Sox, who just a year before hoisted the trophy, or the Tampa Bay Rays, a low payroll, scrappy team that was experiencing winning for the first time? You would think the team with the more experience of winning would be able to pull this off, right? Well, in a pitching dominance that featured a rookie David Price coming in and pitching the final 2 innings for Tampa Bay, the Rays took Game 7 3-1, meaning that they were the American League champions. And hey, this became kind of an interesting World Series because the Phillies actually had a worse record than the Rays entering this World Series, as the Phillies were 92-70 and the Rays at 97-65. There were pundits that said maybe this is the time where we favor the Rays. They're just, not necessarily playing better baseball, but they look like the better team right now. Even though the Phillies had a higher payroll, more talent, they just kind of had bumps in the road that they had to figure out during the season. And after the team split the first 2 games of the series, things kind of got out of hand for Tampa Bay. It seemed like when momentum was on their side, the Phillies would take it back, and all of a sudden they found themselves going into Game 5, down 3-1, and then the rain hit Philadelphia, and I mean hit Philly to a point where they had to stop in the middle of Game 5 and come back 2 days later to even finish this thing off, because obviously the MLB in a what could potentially be game-deciding World Series didn't want to just outright say, nope, this game doesn't count. They postponed it and kept it going until they knew they could resume it. And what went on for days and days, the Phillies finally took Game 5 of the World Series, becoming world champions for the second time and ending one of the most surprising World Series runs that the league had seen probably in its history.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Now, most teams, like this Rays team, would have shown that this season was kind of a fluke. Things came together at the right time. They got to where they needed to be. And heck, even in 2009, the team won 84 games, 13 less than their pennant-winning season, leaving many to believe that, was this season just a blip? Is this the closest thing to winning the Rays are going to have? But even after that 2009 season, they would win the division title again in 2010, have an amazing, amazing run to a wild card in 2011.
Just posted the final here. Baltimore defeating Boston 4-3. 2-2 and a line shot down the left field line. That ball is gone, and the Rays win it. A line drive home run by Evan Longoria, and the Rays storm the field.
And would be constant playoff contenders every single year, and they would even make the World Series again in the COVID-shortened 2020 season, where they would fall in 6 games to the Dodgers.
And on the first pitch, in the air, right field, that is playable. Coming in, Margot, and that's it! The Tampa Bay Rays have won the American League pennant!
So needless to say, even though this 2008 Rays team was surprising and kind of came out of nowhere, they continued to prove to everybody that that season wasn't just going to be an outlier. They were going to continue to win and just continue to defy the odds, because they've continued to win by being a small market team that doesn't spend a lot of money. They make a lot of trades, they get prospects back, and they are able to develop very well, something that early on in their franchise history, the first decade when they were the Devil Rays, just couldn't seem to do. All in all, baseball is one of the most interesting sports because you get teams like this every single year that kind of pop up when they're on nobody's radar and they shock the world, whether they win the World Series or not. So there you have it. There's my thoughts on the 2008 Tampa Bay Rays, a team that used the power of friendship to get to the World Series. And even though they couldn't complete the mission, it was just a fun team to watch, And the fact that a new MLB powerhouse came out of this was pretty cool to see as well. Until then, that's it for me. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.